Hello, everyone, and welcome to Let's Talk About Brand. I do this show every single Friday live on Facebook and Twitter. Used to be Periscope too, but now Periscope is no more. So hopefully this is actually showing up on Twitter live. I'm Christine Gritmon. I'm a personal brand coach and a social media trainer. And this show is all about different elements of branding, especially personal branding, every single week with a focus on social media and a different fabulous guest every week sharing their expertise. Today's guest is the wonderful Alexa Heinrich. She is the social media manager for St. Petersburg College in Florida, but she has really emerged with this amazing personal brand around accessibility awareness, digital accessibility. And the most amazing thing to me about it is that she didn't even say, I'm going to go become known for this thing. She just cared and talked about it. And eventually people started really learning from her. And I'm very grateful to be among them. So we're going to be talking to Alexa about digital accessibility. In the meantime, if you are a replay viewer, welcome. We love our replay viewers. However, we do have a weekly giveaway during the live show only every week. And that giveaway this week is Quick. Quick is my favorite video captioning tool. The things I love about Quick, I've been using it since it was in beta. Quick is great because their video captioning is, first of all, really accurate. I find I have to do very few edits. And you can also make it pretty. You can make it nice and branded and burn those in. You can also download the SRT file, which is a very good tip actually for live videos. It's hard to add captions to live videos but it's actually pretty easy. You just download an SRT file and upload that to the live, which I'm gonna try to do after this. So if you are interested in quick video captioning, live viewers only, type in hashtag quick to win 6 months of their pro plan. Again, we love you replay viewers. Come next Friday at 12 noon Eastern time if you want to win next week's prize, which is TBD. All right, without any further ado, I'm going to bring on our fabulous guest, Alexa. Woo! Welcome, Alexa. I'm so excited to have you here. I know we connected initially sometime last year on Twitter, and watching just the awareness of you rise so exponentially has been fantastic, because not only is that awesome because I think that you're an awesome person who deserves recognition, but you are teaching people. You are making the internet a better place for digital accessibility. So I would love it if you could just tell us a little bit about what digital accessibility is and how you came to become such a strong voice for it.
Sure. So first and foremost, thank you for having me on the show. I was very excited to be here. Digital accessibility really just means making your content accessible for everyone, no matter their level of physical or mental ability. So you have users that have vision impairments, they have hearing impairments, they're deaf, blind, sometimes deaf, blind as in a combination. And your content needs to be made accessible so that they can also enjoy it like everyone else. It was kind of an accident that I became interested in this area of marketing. I was working in Chicago, and part of my job in Chicago, in addition to social media for a very large organization, was managing some of the digital assets on the website. And one day I was uploading websiters to our homepage, and the digital strategist on my team asked me if I was putting alt text on those websiters, and I had no idea what she was talking about. So I started to do more personal research into what accessibility meant for web, specifically for social media, because I wanted to make sure that the primary part of my job was being optimized for everyone. So that's kind of how I came into that, and I've just never stopped talking about it or learning about it.
I love that so much. And I love how you have made alt text like such a, not a buzzword, because it's a very real thing. Can you talk a little bit about what alt text is, what it means, and this is, a loaded question, but how to do it well?
Sure. So Alt text is basically the metadata that you attach to a digital image. So if someone is blind or visually impaired, they need to use assistive devices like a screen reader or text-to-speech programs to access digital information. So how are they going to handle an image? Alt text is the short physical summary of what that image is. And you can do this on Twitter, you can do it on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, even Pinterest now allows for manually writing alt text. It's still kind of new to a lot of digital marketers when it comes to social media, just because social media is kind of catching up to that technology. It's commonplace on websites to have alt text, but not so much social media. So I encourage people to add alt text to their social media images. And then when it comes to writing alt text, you really just want to describe what your image is of. What are the physical details of that image? Is there text on your image? You need to include that because a screen reader is not going to be able to read that. Are there notable people in your image? Stuff like that. So it's a very subjective exercise, but it's super important to making your images accessible for everyone.
To that end, one thing that a lot of people have struggle with, myself included, is about how much detail to include because I mean there's two ends of the spectrum there besides having no alt text at all, right? I know some people who seem to feel the need to describe every single detail, and I'm like, if I were hearing this on a reader, I'd be exhausted by this level of detail. And in particular, actually, let's see. Marianne was part of our chat on Tuesday, chat about brand. She mentioned, I'd like to understand more about alt text for images. Is there a framework or formula you use in terms of what to describe first? And similarly, you know what? We'll get to the art question in a minute. But, but yeah, how do you decide what level of detail to get into and which things to describe and which things to just kind of leave?
So again, it's kind of hard because writing alt text is so subjective. So for me personally, I try to get the biggest, most important details that are contextually important to the rest of my post because your image obviously is going to complement what you've written in the written part of your tweet or post. So I try to focus on the biggest, most important details. Um, Basically, if you were to close your eyes and someone was going to read your alt text to you, would it make sense? Would you be able to visualize what you had described? Does it match the actual image? So I don't really have a formula. I just know these are the details that I think are important to the viewer, and this is what I'm going to describe to them. I will say that if you have flattened text on your image, that's usually pretty important to include in your alt text if it's not included anywhere else in your post. So stuff like that. But yeah, it's pretty difficult. I get people asking me, do I include colors? And I usually say yes, just because not everyone is completely blind. People don't, some people lose their vision later on in life. So color is still relevant to visualizing an image. But again, it's super subjective, and how much alt text people actually want is also preferential. So there's never going to be a yes, no, black and white answer for how do I write alt text well.
And one thing that, I mean, I'm constantly learning from you always. Two things that I just want to share about my journey with trying to get better at this. One of them is I, of course, use a lot of GIFs. People who follow me on Twitter have seen my GIFs all over the place. And I used to just put essentially the way I refer to it in my head. Like, you know, and I've started trying to expand it just to Christine on a red background doing blah 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 with the text blah blah blah. That's so much. I used to just write like two words, and now you've really helped me realize, no, I should make it clear that this is of me, and I should make it clear that I'm on a red background, because that's
Mm-hmm.
the branding can get lost if it's only visual.
Yes.
And another thing is that on my Twitter chat, I used to have no alt text at all because I figured, well, I mean, the whole question is in the tweet, so they don't really need to know what's on the GIF. And then I realized that that's kind of, again, like, you don't need to know is kind of a jerky stance to take on social media
Yeah.
content. So then I'd write the whole text out on it. But then I just learned from you, literally, I think last week from an interview with you, I realized I can just say, question text on a red background with a gif of Christine looking at it or something like that, so that they
Mhm.
at least know what's going on. And again, it conveys that element of branding that I took care to put in there for my sighted audience, but it lets everyone in on what's going on because they may not know. And that's describing gifs feels weird. It feels like explaining a joke sometimes is what it literally is. Is there an art to doing that well?
I love doing alt text for, I'm sorry, I'm going to say GIFs. So we're
That's
split here.
fine.
But I actually love writing alt text for GIFs because it's such a creative exercise to write it. Like it's kind of funny. And I joked before a few weeks ago that we should do an exercise where I choose a GIF, I don't show it to anyone, and then I write the alt text and I just tweet it and see if people can find the GIF that I'm talking about because
I was literally
it's
just
just
about
kind
to
of
ask you to do that. Like, what are some of your favorite GIFs? Like, how would you
I
describe them?
think I think the one that I used as an example was the Anne Hathaway in a cream sweater, like she's winking and then
With the
or
champagne?
raising, yes, with the champagne. See, I think that was the one I used, and I did the alt text and I tweeted it out, and I had so many people sending me the GIF. I'm like, okay, that was a pretty standard one, especially because it was super popular a few weeks ago for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like a fun exercise to like think through how do I describe this image? So I always think it's really funny.
Yeah. And one really key element of that is if you are using a GIF for humor purposes, you don't want the joke to get lost.
Mhm.
Like explain it in a way that kind of, they can kind of get it. Juan wanted to ask you about Quick, but I don't think you specifically use Quick. I use Quick. And a reminder to everybody that that is our giveaway today for live viewers. But what Quick is it is you upload your video to it, and it auto captions it. But you can go in and you can edit every single word. You can edit the way it looks. You can download the full transcript of it, which is nice if you want to turn it into a blog post or even just post your transcript alongside the video. You can download the SRT file, which is useful because then you can just upload that as metadata for the video that has already aired instead of having to re-upload the video. And the way that I have used it for this show, and I've fallen behind, I will admit, because I used to hire somebody to do it for me, but what I used to do is I used to have them correct the captions, upload the SRT file to the metadata of the live stream, which is great because then you don't have to re-upload it. But then I would burn the captions in for when I uploaded it to YouTube. And I would also take the transcript for if I want to turn some of these interviews into like writing someday. But that brings up a very good question that you are very capable of answering, which is about video captioning and and kind of where it's at right now, because of course we're on a live show right now. I think depending on people's settings, they may be seeing live captioning at this point or they may not be. I feel like that's kind of at this point more the user settings that are on the person's Facebook or Twitter or whatnot. But I'd love to hear from you your feelings on sort of the field of video captioning right now, where it's at, in terms
So
of
live,
what people can
yeah,
do.
you're not wrong. Live captioning is super hit or miss with depending on the platform. I don't know about Twitter's live captioning capabilities. I do know that Facebook has live captioning. Um, they're trying to introduce it to Instagram. They have auto captions for IGTV. They're doing a caption sticker for Instagram stories that's still being beta tested. Trying to think. That's pretty much it when it comes to on platform captioning capabilities. TikTok and Snapchat are finally getting it together and testing captioning. So that's great because TikTok has been under fire for months now from their creators of like, we need captioning.
You
This
brought
isn't
something up
accessible.
regarding TikTok that I think was very interesting the other day, which I and many don't understand, which is the difference between closed captioning and open captioning. What is the difference and how does it impact accessibility?
So that was really funny. I don't know, my brain is wired this way. So a lot of times when you go onto TikTok, you'll see that users have captioned their own videos manually, which is impressive. And they basically show those captions. They'll put CC and then they write the captions. And CC is shorthand for closed caption. Those aren't closed caption. Closed captions are what you have on YouTube, on Netflix, on streaming services where you can turn them on or off depending on your preference. Open captions are always visible and cannot be turned off by the viewer. So what TikTok users are actually doing are open captioning, but most people don't seem to understand the difference, which in my book, as long as you have captions of some sort, you're doing more than most people. So, but yeah, open captions are always on, always open, whereas closed captions can be toggled on and off based on the preferences of the viewer. So I get a kick out of every time I see CC and then captions. I'm like, no, those are open captions, but I commend them for doing more than the platform's doing.
So it sounds like basically if someone's watching this on Facebook right now with live captioning, that is closed captioning because that's a matter of if you've turned it on or off with Facebook or with the video in particular. But when I download this video later, upload it to Quick, burn my captions in, then upload that file to YouTube so that whether you have YouTube captioning turned on or off doesn't matter because it's burned into the video. That will be open captioning.
Correct. Which actually, when you upload your video to YouTube, Christine, you don't actually need to burn them on. You can upload the SRT file as a separate file to YouTube. YouTube is really versatile that way, which I love. So you can upload your own SRT file,
Yeah, but I want
or
them
you
cute.
can go in. Yeah, no, I totally understand. But you can also, so you can upload them, you can write your own captions in there, or you can do what I do, and I make YouTube do all the hard work.
Yeah.
So I upload my videos as an unlisted video. I let YouTube auto caption them, and then I'll go in and edit the captions once they're done so they're accurate. So yeah, YouTube's great that way.
Last time I did editing of auto captions, I haven't tried it a ton with YouTube, but I found Facebook was really, they just got so much wrong. Like that's one of the reasons I use a program is because I feel like it just was more accurate. And actually yes. I used to have a gig where this podcaster would pay someone on rev.com is a very popular captioning service, and you pay someone to do it, and they would give me the rev transcript, and I would kind of turn it into a blog. And there were a lot of times when, because of human error, because it was being transcribed by someone who wasn't in the industry. So they would hear a word and they would think it was a certain word because it sounded like a certain word. But as someone who works in the industry, I'd have to go back and listen to that part of the podcast and be like, no, that's not what they said.
Yeah.
That's an industry term.
Yeah, YouTube's captioning is actually pretty good. I mean, obviously, you're not going to get punctuation or proper nouns and names.
And I accept that everywhere, I'm always going to be Christine Griffin on auto captions. Because why wouldn't I? Mean, they don't have Gritmon in their dictionary.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that brings us actually to another question from the chat. Kelly, she has a lot of questions for you. She's probably watching at least on the replay, but she's doing social media work for an artist. That is something that is so subjective because the fact is sometimes it's clear it's like a landscape of, a red barn on rolling green hills, but sometimes it's, more abstract or there's more feeling involved, and that's something where, people can see such different things. So in that case, would one literally just describe like the fields of color? Like, how do you do something that's so subjective?
So I've never had to write alt text for abstract art pieces. It is going to be incredibly subjective. First and foremost, I would actually name the medium because typically when I write alt text for a general image, I don't say image of or photo of because the screen reader is already going to say that. But if you have an alternative medium, I think it's important to say graphic or illustration or painting, stuff like that. So it adds to the overall visual context of your image. With an art piece, you're going to have to be creative about it. You're going to have to try and describe the colors, try to describe the feeling that that painting or illustration invokes. Is it a charcoal drawing? What are the lines like? I went to art school, so I might be a little bit better at it than I think, but it would be completely dependent on the art piece, which is not always that easy. So
I might even ask
it's
the
a
artist. Like the art, although
yeah,
sometimes they might be too close. I mean,
yes,
depending.
yeah. Again, it would be super difficult, but it'd be like writing alt text for GIFs. It'd be a creative exercise for sure.
Yeah. Oh goodness. And as was brought up on in various places, it would be so lovely if when I upload to Giphy.com, if I could actually include that, because I can include tags. Why can't I include alt text? But again, even GIFs, they can be used differently by different people. Like
Mhm.
there was one that I had where I was kind of shocked, and apparently people are really finding that via the search term pearl clutch. So I've since actually recorded, but I haven't uploaded an edited one yet, where I'm literally clutching pearls just to improve the searchability. But even then, I'd
That's
say clutching pearls
interesting.
and looking shocked.
Hmm.
It is a creative exercise for sure. Charlie and Alex want to know. So as we know, as I've established, I love Quick, but what software do you like for adding captions to things, especially with small budgets? As you mentioned, there is some auto captioning functionality increasingly in the software.
So I use YouTube when I do closed captioning. If I want to add open captions to a video, I am very partial to the app Mix Captions. It's great. You can upload a video. It takes a little bit, like a minute, to auto generate the captions for you. They are then burned onto your video. You can edit them. You can move them around. You can edit the background. You can add a watermark. So I really like mixed captions because they're so easy to edit and kind of personalize. They're also a relatively inexpensive app. So I pay for the seconds and it's like $20 and you have like hours upon hours of captions that you can use, which for social media is great because we're usually doing short videos. So I really like mixed captions. There's a lot of other apps out there like Clipomatic, Threads, Clips, Capwing is another great one. AutoCap is Android friendly. So yeah, there's a lot of great apps out there that I recommend, but mixed captions is definitely my favorite one.
And to your point, also, you can always do open captions too. A lot of
Mhm.
the video editing software will let you just kind of pop in captions on your own, which is pretty great.
Mhm.
All right. So another question is, actually, you know what? I'm going to go back to an earlier question. Jennifer wants to know, for orgs just getting started with actually considering accessibility, where's the first place they should look? What's the first change that they should make in order to be more accessible with their digital media?
I actually have a checklist on my website. So you can find me at therealalexa.com, and I have a checklist of pretty basic things to do when it comes to accessibility and your social media content. So one of the easiest things that you could do is put your hashtags in camel case. So if we're using the hashtag chat
Instagram
about
makes that
brand,
so annoyingly
yeah.
hard because
Oh my
Instagram,
gosh.
it's so easy. You start typing in a hashtag and it knows what you're doing and tells you how many people are using it. And it's so easy to just click. And I admit that I've been
Hmm.
failing at this all over the place because it's so easy to just click. But camel case, talk about camel case because that is something so many people don't even think about.
So camel case basically just means if you have a compound hashtag, so the hashtag chat about brand is 3 words as one hashtag, I would be capitalizing the C in chat, the A in about, and the B in brand so that the capital letters tell a screen reader or text to speech program these are 3 separate words. You need to say it as 3 separate words and not as one big long word. So it's super easy, but you're right. Instagram, LinkedIn, even Twitter do kind of suggest their hashtags in all lowercase. It's super frustrating. I don't know why that is, if it's a programming thing or whatever, but I force my hashtags into camel case every single time.
I
Plus,
think
camel
it's a
case is,
self-perpetuating issue because I feel like they get the trending hashtags from people using them. So people
yes,
using them type them a certain way. But yeah, it would be nice if they could find some way to override that, but it's tricky. It would
yeah.
require humans to parse out.
Plus, camel case is literally easier
Yeah,
for everyone to
it
read.
is.
It's not just for, blind and visually impaired. That's just how our eyes move with letters. So I prefer it. I've preferred it before I knew about it from an accessibility standpoint.
Yeah, it just makes sense. It's very clear where the words are. Absolutely. So that's a very good place to start. One thing that Kevin wants to know is if is there any hope on the horizon for platforms to make it easier? Gift creators having to produce all text for their gifts, hashtag suggestion camel case. Are have you seen movement on this front recently from the platforms towards making it more accessible?
So I don't know about those two specific things, but I will say that Twitter is very transparent about its desire to be more accessible as a platform, which I love because Twitter is my favorite platform. So it's like nice to see my favorite child doing the most. But they they got a lot of backlash last year when they launched audio tweets as a beta test in the United States, and there were no transcript or captioning options for that. That was an issue, and people told them about that it was an issue, and they basically came out the next day and said, "We're sorry, we messed up. We're going to do better." And they have. They've been actively trying to do better. They've been very transparent about it. They've hired people for accessibility. They've built a whole team. They've held virtual town halls with other users
That's
of,
huge.
can you tell us what you want to see? Like, what can we do better to serve you? So I really appreciate that. Their team is amazing, and I'm just really happy to see that Twitter is so 100% about being accessible.
Yeah. I want to mention that Joseline had a question about what to do with writing context, like shades of colors. It sounds like from Alexa's earlier response, it sounds like your response, Alexa, would be basically, does it impact the experience? Right?
I think when you write alt text, it definitely does, because again, a lot of people have a very black and white idea of what a disabled user looks like. They're 100% blind and 100% deaf, and they've been that way forever, when that's not the case. Most people, aren't 100% blind. They might still see vague shapes and colors and outlines. So including color is still contextually important to most alt text. There are people who became disabled later on in life. There are people who are temporarily disabled. So I've had an ear infection so bad at one point that I lost my hearing for a week. So I got it back, obviously, but for a week, I was temporarily disabled. So it's important to expand your understanding of disability. It's not black and white, it is a full spectrum of possibilities.
That's important. And temporary disability is really key also because, I mean, I'm sure that while you had your hearing loss for a week, you didn't want to stop using all the platforms that you normally use. I think one of the biggest misconceptions about accessibility is, well, why are they looking at a piece of art if they're visually
Mm-hmm.
disabled? And the answer is because it's a spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And because
Well,
people
even
should have a right to full experience of life regardless.
yeah, I've gone to a movie before where it started. I was a teenager, I think. I started to play, and all of a sudden there was like another voice happening in the theater, and I was like, what is that? It's because there was a blind audience member, and they need audio descriptions to understand the physical attributes of what's happening in the scene. So I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. Like,
Interesting.
cool. Someone wants to enjoy this movie. And this was like probably 15 years ago. So now, for all I know, maybe they have headphones that they give to these users. But for that experience, like, I was a very small town. I was just looking around, like, where is this voice coming from? I don't think this is part of the movie. But then I understood, like, oh, okay, someone else wants to enjoy the movie, and this is how they have to do it. Cool.
All right, so it is time to announce our prize winner of 6 months of Quick's Pro plan. And our winner this week is Juan Santiago. So congratulations, Juan. If you could DM me your email address, that would be great, and we will get you hooked up with 6 months of Quick. Thank you so much, Alexa, for being on. I was really excited to have you on. I'm excited for you to be on absolutely everywhere, just because I always, no matter how much I follow you, I always learn something new, because it is a journey of kind of getting to making these things habit and adding on. I would love it if you could tell people 2 things. First of all, resources places where they can get more information on digital accessibility, but then also where they can find you.
So that's kind of a 1-2 answer. My website, which is therealalexa.com, I've kind of turned it into a resource hub for digital accessibility when it comes to social media content creation. When I first started doing research into this, I was having a really hard time finding one source of information for social media specifically. So I've kind of taken it upon myself to become that resource. But other great resources include the World Wide Web Consortium, so W3C, which is basically the universal standards for digital accessibility for the web.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alexa, for being on. Again, hashtag Hey Alexa in all sorts of places, therealalexa.com. I highly encourage everyone to look Alexa up and to follow her and to learn from her. Again, I am Christine Gritmon. I do this show every single Friday at 12 noon Eastern time, but I also have a Twitter chat on Tuesdays. My Twitter chat is Tuesdays, also 12 noon Eastern time, Chat About Brand, where we discuss the exact same topic that I will be discussing on Friday's show. It's just Tuesday's a discussion with the community, and Friday is a discussion with a live guest. I actually am still putting together next week's schedule, so make sure to follow me, and I will announce on Monday what next Tuesday's topic and next Friday's guest will be. In the meantime, thanks for being here. Bye-bye.